Sub-Admiral Glarn von Meep had survived 3 bureaucratic collapses, 2 interspecies trade wars over punctuation, and once spent 8 consecutive years chairing the Intergalactic panel on acceptable table manners. But nothing prepared him for what splattered across his multi-ocular displays that morning, a corrupted data package titled Earth Starter Pack, LOL Zip, intercepted by a malfunctioning stealth probe orbiting a backwater mudball, tagged Sol 3. The contents were an uncurated symphony of terror, humans in combat gear doing synchronized dances, a shirtless man deep-frying a grenade, he called it Cajun style, and something called Karen vs. Mall Cop 17 Electric. Boogaloo. That was the first hour. The next 399 were worse. CHIT, the Central Harmonized Interstellar Treaty, was not designed for this level of chaos. Its members, an illustrious medley of logic-driven, policy-obsessed, war-allergic species, nearly imploded from sheer semantic horror. A summit was called, Red Alert Level, Semantic Detonation Imminent. Glarn arrived still steaming from the stress moisture bubbling off his gelatinous surface. But before the delegates could even agree on who should chair the subcommittee to decide who should chair the emergency meeting, something entered the atmosphere. It was a shipping container, titanium, scorched, vibrating with the deep bass of what scans later revealed to be a bass-boosted remix of Eye of the Tiger. The container landed dead center on the plaza of the Galactic Cultural Integration Dome, crushing a statue of unity in bureaucracy. Security bots converged, officials screamed, interns cried, and Glarn, gurgling profanity in 6 dialects of Meepian, slid up to the scene just as the box hissed open with the dramatic flair of a bad action holo. Out stepped Commander Jenna Briggs, 6 feet of tactical sass in battle-worn Navy SEAL camo, one hand gripping a steaming espresso mug emblazoned with "Your protocol can bite me," the other holding a confused alien puppy in sunglasses. She took in the rows of horrified ambassadors, raised one eyebrow like she was judging a bad PowerPoint, and smirked. "So," she said, voice casual, tone dripping with unearned confidence, "I heard someone needed help understanding Earth. I brought snacks." Then she tossed a vacuum-sealed bag labeled "Nuclear Nachos," now with more regret, to a nearby Clarnaxian, who promptly tried one and passed out mid-crunch. Behind her, the open container revealed Earth's official diplomatic contribution. A flaming hot Cheeto altar, a heavily redacted war manual titled "Winning Friends and Vaporizing Enemies," and a drive labeled "Totally Not a Virus, Swear." Glarn emitted a wheezing sigh so profound it triggered a minor atmospheric ripple. "She's not vetted," he whispered. "She's not anything." Jenna took a slow sip from her mug. "I'm vetted. I've got 2 kids, 4 ex-bosses, and a bulletproof sarcasm rating. You're welcome." The delegates flinched. The puppy sneezed plasma. The galactic anthem began playing from someone's translator badge, backward. As the cultural vetting squad fanned themselves with emergency ethics scrolls, and one fainted into a diplomatic fern, Jenna plopped onto the nearest chair, reserved for the honorary linguistics chair of Sector 9B, propped her boots on the Unity table and asked, "So, which of you space nerds wants to see a video of a wombat suplexing a drone over a karaoke duel?" The only response was Glarn, trying to drink from a stapler. Jenna smiled wider. First contact was off to a fantastic start. The cultural vetting squad should have known better than to open the human starter kit during a live galactic broadcast. But hindsight is a luxury rarely afforded to those mid-crisis and standing in front of an audience of 6 billion live viewers. The ceremonial unboxing began with the kind of pomp usually reserved for peace treaties or species apologies, until the lid peeled back and out rolled a deep-fried bust of Julius Caesar, wearing aviators and giving a double thumbs up. The aroma alone caused 3 Meepian analysts to undergo spontaneous bioluminescent stress shedding. The second item, a storage cube containing a data drive labeled "Totally Not a Virus," emitted faint giggles and requested a stable Wi-Fi connection before anyone could stop it. The live feed switched itself to a slideshow of human memes. featuring cats in tactical gear, dogs wearing monocles, and something called Operation Yeetpocalypse Historical Edition. Panic began to ferment. The third item, a DVD box set of Fast and the Ferocious, Part 37, was accidentally activated and began auto-playing on all holographic display units in the chamber, creating a disorienting loop of explosions, muscle flexing, and people yelling "family" in 87 languages. The final item, a human-authored tactical guide titled Winning Wars with Improvised Sporks, was printed in Comic Sans and drenched in hot sauce. Ambassador Cryptalix, a six-eyed warrior librarian from the Order of Proper Conduct, attempted to read it aloud and immediately began choking on a footnote about soup-based defense systems. It was at that precise moment, like a divine punchline from an uncaring universe, that Commander Jenna Briggs made her second entrance, this time rappelling from the ceiling in a grav pod shaped like a missile cooler, chewing a protein bar and casually leading a war beast Glibnark pup on a leash made of braided zip ties. The feed zoomed in on her boots, landing atop the Unity table with a deliberate thud that echoed like a war crime. "Sorry I'm late," she said, brushing off ash from her camo. "Took a wrong turn near Saturn and accidentally taught a jelly bear how to high-five." No one moved. Cryptalix attempted to speak, but only managed a choked gurgle that sounded like someone reciting etiquette codes into a blender. Jenna surveyed the room, unimpressed, then pulled a second protein bar from her pouch and tossed it to the trembling Clarnaxian envoy, who reflexively caught it and immediately began weeping from the flavor. "So," Jenna continued, strolling around like it was casual Friday on a battlefield, "you guys want to know about humanity? Cool. Here's lesson 1. Chaos builds character, also abs." She activated a holo projector with a flick of her wrist, unleashing a montage titled "Humans Doing Stuff We Probably Shouldn't Survive." It included footage of someone snowboarding down an active volcano, a granny with a flamethrower gardening a cactus labeled Jeff, and a slow-motion clip of a man bare-knuckle boxing a weather drone. The delegation screamed in 17 dialects of panic. Cryptalix's eye stalks tried to close themselves off from reality. A nervous intern whispered, "This can't be real," just as Jenna opened another clip titled "Diplomacy According to Earth," a compilation of historical betrayals set to upbeat jazz and narrated by a man named Uncle Gunther, who wore nothing but a towel and a monocle. At least one Stokarn spontaneously combusted from diplomatic overload. The Clarnaxians started a betting pool on how many faintings would happen before the end of the hour. Glarn von Meep, still gripping his emergency stapler like a religious relic, slid to Jenna's side and hissed, "You're destabilizing centuries of harmony." She glanced down at him, smirked, and whispered, "You're welcome." With that, she kicked off her boots, reclined in the ambassador's ergonomic chair, pulled the Glibnark pup into her lap, and nonchalantly began feeding it Cheetos while the Galactic Order cracked like a glow stick at a rave. The human starter kit had officially detonated, and the rest of the galaxy had no idea this was only Phase 1. By the time the Galactic Dignitary Roundtable convened for what was optimistically labeled the controlled conversation with the human envoy, the diplomatic chamber had been redesigned to include padded walls, anti-fainting helmets, and a roaming medical jellyfish with mood-stabilizing tentacles. Jenna Briggs arrived late again, unapologetically sipping a neon blue energy drink labeled Orbit Juice, now with 200% more regret, and wearing a tactical hoodie emblazoned with the phrase "Diplomacy is just war with more snacks." The HFY Council Chair, a crystalline entity named Vorshex-17, attempted to open the session with solemn gravity, but was interrupted when Jenna belched the word "freedom" and tossed her half-eaten granola bar into a Meepian's open file drawer. The first question, from Ambassador Yulor of the Stokarn Protocol Syndicate, was asked in 7 layers of honorifics and translated as, "What is your species' governing philosophy?" Jenna blinked, grinned, and replied, "Mainly? Don't die, look cool, share memes." A pause, silence. Then a Clarnaxian delegate scribbled furiously in his notes under cultural priorities. Yalor tried again, asking why humans engaged in so many self-endangering behaviors, referencing videos from the starter kit that included cheese wheel jousting, mid-orbit planking, and an inflatable obstacle course named Pain Olympics. Family Edition. Jenna leaned forward, elbows on the table, and answered, "Because it builds character. And sometimes abs. Also, we get bored fast." That's when the Order of Proper Conduct's representative, Ambassador Cryptalix, still emotionally scarred from the sport guide, attempted to restore order with a pointed historical query about Earth's military engagements. Jenna responded by projecting top 10 greatest betrayals in galactic history, Earth Remix, narrated in a smug British voice with captions like, "That time we weaponized jazz hands," and "How to outsmart a robot empire using reality TV." By the third betrayal, where a human fleet used inflatable tanks, synchronized dance moves, and fake romance subplots to decoy an invading armada, Cryptalix had begun twitching violently and whispering, "Why the flamingos?" A Stokarn aide muttered something about sacred decorum before catching sight of the next clip, which featured a live-action training session titled Weaponizing Chaos, a Masterclass, taught by Jenna herself, where she demonstrated how to trap a plasma trooper using only duct tape, a beanbag chair, and a children's lullaby played backwards. The betting pool on faintings hit record highs when Glan von Meep, now 2 drinks into a caffeinated despair spiral, began filing request for early retirement, species-level emergency. But the real tipping point came when a Clarnaxian peace envoy asked about Earth's war diplomacy, and Jenna responded with a printed meme that read, "We tried peace once. It was awful. No snacks." She passed it around. Several delegates found it relatable. Others found it heretical. The cultural division lines began to fracture as one Meepian ambassador openly laughed for the first time in recorded species history and requested to learn Earth sarcasm. The Galactic Dignitary Roundtable's control unraveled faster than a low-budget warp core. Delegates began defecting to Team Human mid-session, citing emotional liberation, mimetic resilience. And honestly, the food's better. The Vexorian linguist collapsed in euphoric confusion after decoding the phrase YOLO and discovering it meant live recklessly and maybe eat cake. Meanwhile, Jenna calmly laid out a snack spread of tactical rations, Cheetos, and vacuum-sealed empanadas. "Here's the deal," she said, wiping hot sauce from her cheek with a protocol scroll. "You want predictable allies? We ain't it. You want someone to hold the line while screaming karaoke and biting down on a grenade pin? That's us. We're a little unhinged, but we bring results and baked goods." Silence fell again, heavy, stunned, and full of existential crisis seasoning. A holographic sign behind Jenna flickered into life, reading, "Humanity, too weird to predict, too stubborn to ignore." And just like that, the Galactic Order began fraying at the edges, unraveling beneath the weight of tactical banter and irreverent charm. Jenna took another sip of orbit juice, smirked, and said, "So, we voting or what?" The emergency session of the Central Harmonized Interstellar Treaties Supreme Council, classified as category "What the hell is this?" opened in chaos, which, by human standards, meant it was finally getting interesting. Jenna Briggs entered the chamber fashionably 15 minutes late, not because she was trying to make a statement, but because she'd gotten distracted teaching a Glibnark war beast to roll over, shake, and headbutt diplomats on command. She walked in with a tactical duffel slung over one shoulder, her ever-present espresso mug steaming in one hand, and the war beast trotting happily at her side wearing a tiny vest that read, "Emotional Support Nightmare." The council members, some, still reeling from the spontaneous mimetic collapse of their legal department after reading a digital scroll of Earth's subreddit history, were in no shape for structured debate. Sub-Admiral Glarn von Meep had given up entirely and was now floating in a punch bowl of anti-anxiety goo, muttering about jazz hands and the culinary threat level of nacho cheese. Ambassador Cryptalix had entered a meditative trance of pure denial, occasionally twitching the phrase, "sporks are not weapons," under his breath. The vote was meant to be a formality, a last-ditch attempt to quarantine Earth behind metaphorical galactic caution tape. But Jenna, in true human fashion, derailed that with a PowerPoint presentation she assembled on the shuttle ride in. It was titled, "Why You Definitely Don't Want to Piss Off Humans," and began with a slow zoom-in of a toddler glaring into the camera while holding a wrench. The next slide was a compilation of Earth's cultural habits, including laughing at danger, making friends with apex predators, and starting fights over pizza toppings. The council tried to object. Jenna raised a finger, silencing the chamber like a kindergarten teacher who once taught knife fighting. "You don't have to like us," she said calmly, pacing the room with the war beast obediently following her, growling at anyone who flinched. "But we're here. We showed up. You didn't invite us, and we took that personally. So we brought tacos, memes, and 40,000 years of creative violence compacted into one overly caffeinated, under-supervised species that thinks duct tape and spite are viable problem-solving tools." She paused at the Unity podium, flipped the display, and brought up a final image. A human rescue unit on an alien battlefield, laughing in the middle of a firestorm, while sharing a granola bar with a wounded enemy. "We're not just chaos," she continued, voice steady now, her smirk softening into something that looked dangerously like sincerity. "We're loyalty. We're the friends you call when diplomacy fails and the universe catches fire. We'll fight your wars, clean up the mess, and insult your fashion choices, all before breakfast, and then we'll send you memes about it." A stunned silence followed. Then, somewhere in the back, a delegate, unidentified, possibly intoxicated, stood and shouted, "I vote yes if we get access to those things you called burritos." That broke the tension. The Stokarn delegation wept openly. The Meepians dissolved into appreciative sparkles. The Clarnaxians began issuing trade contracts to import jalapeno-flavored tactical rations, and the Council, against all probability, voted. Earth was granted membership status. Not full membership, of course, CHIT. Wasn't that insane? But something new. Special threat-adjacent species with probationary chaos rights. Humanity received limited trade access, semi-permanent observation status, and a required galactic warning label that read, "Caution. Contents may explode with sarcasm, spontaneous diplomacy, or existential humor." As the vote passed, Jenna saluted mockingly, fed the Glibnock pup a freeze-dried meatball, and addressed the assembly one final time. "Welcome to Earth's version of peace," she said. "Unpredictable, unfiltered, occasionally flammable, but always interesting." Then she turned on her heel, dropped a business card that read, "Commander Jenna Briggs, Cultural Complications Specialist," and walked out as the anthem of the United Federation of Board Auditors accidentally played backwards through the Council PA system. Behind her, the galaxy tried to process what had just happened. Earth was in, the bureaucracy was broken, and the universe would never be boring again.